And I want to make sure that, people that have worked hard to be where they are don't take this as a personal offense, like I'm slamming them, because they happen to make the right connections to make what they're trying to do happen. I really admire, even though I don't know them personally, what people like Jocko Willink and Joe Rogan, Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins have accomplished, because they've gone through really amazing challenges in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But as I think about it more, it's not really how amazing the challenge was that they went through that makes them special, because a lot of people have been through amazing challenges. To me, what makes them stand out as tactical leaders is that they were able to go through what they went through and remain a consciousness about what was going on, what they were doing, so much so that at the end of it they could internalize it and they could unveil what was done right, what was done wrong, and package it and then push it forward to the listener so it can bring value to their lives in a way that, a lot of people go through amazing challenges and they don't know how they got through it. Sometimes they just get lucky and get through it, but then they have nothing to say about it on the back end because, they really didn't go through it on purpose, which I think is another thing that makes people like that a tactical leader. Conversely, though, and the point of this podcast is that I believe that there are people that don't have a claim that have a lot to say too. But the way the world is, we've been trained to only listen to the opinion of and only ask the opinion of people that have amazing resumes, people that have been a commander, people that, have been on elite teams. And again, without disrespecting what these people have gone through, there are people like you and I, boots on the ground, people that have something to say, but no one's asking us. Would you be able to share anything about yourself that could help the listener understand who we're talking to and, just briefly what you're about?
Yeah, so former Specialist Patrick Culver. I was in Night Stalkers, 1st Battalion out of Fort Campbell, 160th. Airborne Special Operations. Lots of trainings, lots of fun times, lots of rough times, and lots of different situations that we've been put in that probably the general population haven't been. But like you're saying, there's a lot we took out of it and a lot of life experiences a lot of guys I served with had before that kind of played into it too and gave creative and different ideas when we're in the field or trying to make it through different situations.
So I guess the kind of team dynamics you were in, it was conducive to idea sharing. It wasn't, there is structurally one person in charge maybe, but I guess the dynamic of maybe like team leadership.
Yeah, that's definitely an important factor. Like you said, there is a command chain and tops down. If they ultimately give you something you got to do it. Can't really ask too much about it. But as far as, heat of the moment decision making, there's some calm time in between. Radio in and out about direction, and you have to make your own decisions if you're in the middle of a firefight. So that definitely plays into it with the team dynamics, and 99% of it's built off trust and just knowing the guy next to you and respecting his decisions and being willing to just go along together with it.
And then, when groups like the military or like law enforcement go on assignments, in the aftermath, there's something called the after action review.
Yeah, those are fun.
It's
a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you go through it like, man, I can't believe we survived that one, but somehow you're able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like after action reviews are done enough, especially like maybe on the law enforcement side or even on the private side, or could they be doing that more?
I'm actually going to ask you that because from the police field, I'm not really familiar with. I know military-wise, anytime any action's taken, there needs to be a report done afterwards, especially if deadly force was used or even presented. So is that the same in the policing? Or do they usually always do an after action, or is it just on occasion for certain reasons?
Regretfully, at least in my 11 years of experience, it's not done enough. There are a lot of things that are done that I guess going into it and retrospectively are very dangerous. And
can you give me an example of like one time, just so I can be on the same page, where you felt an after-action report should have been done and it wasn't?
So, in cases like during the riots.
Okay.
So, during the riots in a major city, there's always the fear of public perception, right, from the command perspective. What do we look like as we're doing our job?
Yeah.
Law enforcement, like the military, I'm guessing, there's a job to do, but there are PR concerns that you have going into it, because at the end of the day, you have to also retain the support of the public you're serving.
Mm-hmm.
Because if everyone decides to not like you, then it'll be impossible to do your job.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes they're overly sensitive about how good they look, and they kind of jeopardize the safety of the mission. So they're like one instance where There should have been after-action reviews done. And if there were, maybe I just didn't see it at my level, because I'm not in command at all. But there was an incident where there was a group of violent protesters, and they were marching, and law enforcement had their larger vehicles, I guess, kind of crowd control. Because it looked nice, they put the friendly bicycle officers on the front line instead of putting the vehicles on the front line as a means of protection. As a result of that, a lot of officers were injured. People were throwing frozen bottles at them, rocks at them. A lot of them, had bruises and cuts, which would have been totally avoidable,
Mm-hmm.
So I feel, especially in cases like that, that should totally affect how you patrol going forward, because it's now a new environment. Even in, like today, where there are, at least in my area, no active violent protests and riots, you still have to patrol, for example, as if you can walk upon one at any given time.
And that's surprising because, I guess military perspective wise, when you're engaged or you're in a combative environment, one of your first responses is show of force. You get pop shots from somewhere from the enemy, even if you don't know where they're shooting from. The first thing they tell us is you shoot back twice as hard. Every 249 Bravos, just chain gun just going off, and everyone, just to let them know, like, hey, we're not messing around. And that applies to, like you're saying, it's idiotic. What they're gonna be shooting AKs at us, and I'm gonna pop a flare gun up, say, hey, stop shooting. Like,
Yeah.
It's the bicycle scenario, like you said. The heavy vehicle should be in front. It's a show of force. Maybe it's not as politically polite, but to deter the situation, they need to be focused on deterring the situation with that show of force with bigger vehicles versus being so worried about, what if it's on CNN, what are they going to say?
Definitely.
I mean, to control the situation, like you said, it's pandering, it's perception. I'll put the bicycles up front to be peaceful, but then, you do it once, it's a mistake. They should have done a report after and realized, okay, we can't do that again.
Definitely. Hey, I don't know if you've experienced anything like this or seen it, but whenever there's an area deemed as hostile, has it been a practice to, for example, in military context, that there's a hostile area, and so you're going to deploy a soldier there who's going to shoot a flare above his position and just stand there and watch?
No, I mean, it's dumb. You're at a disadvantage from all tactical sides. You're sitting duck, you're telling them where you are, and you're kind of showing them what you got, because they can just come and see, okay, it's just one guy, big deal. If you're, to my understanding, and like say you're in Kandahar province and there's a mountain range where there's a lot of violence or IEDs placed and whatnot, and you want to let them know, hey, you're quote unquote patrolling the area. We're going to have, troop movements, constant patrols out there, and on top of that, probably having warthogs doing low pass flybys just to say, hey, don't fuck with us, kind of deal. So,
but that's probably ideally done after some semblance of peace has been established, meaning you don't go to a war zone in high visibility. You
never.
Quash the war zone, and then you have continuity of presence to kind of deter future action, but you don't start with visibility, right?
No, and if you do want to start with visibility, you need to do visibility in force. You can't do visibility with one troop out there. You got to have a whole squad, whole battalion sitting out there in a giant Humvee convoy line saying, hey, we're here. Cool, what are you going to do about it? You can't just, drive one Humvee through and expect, like, oh, they see us, we're here.
Yeah.
It's a deterrent. It's not. It's show of force. So if you're going to be that tactically disadvantaged and show yourself, you better show yourself strong.
The main reason why I invited you to this, which will be the first podcast of this series, is because I believe that you have gone through amazing challenges in your life, both personal life and your professional life in the military. And I think you have a lot to offer, and I would like to ask if maybe you could give an after-action response. So I've been in law enforcement for over 11 years, and I've been in the legal field for 20 years. And because I write, because I'm extra conscientious of my job and what I do, officers of all command, of all different assignments will come to me for my input in different things. And I got an email recently from an officer that works for another agency out of state. I'm not going to name the officer or the agency just to protect them, but it was very alarming what they went through, and it's very, very similar to what we're talking about of trying to establish visibility out of order.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like they were more concerned about the politics of how is this going to be viewed in this climate, more so than officer safety. So I'm going to break out the letter. It's a short letter. The officer that sent the letter basically had 3 questions at the end of it, and I'd be very interested in your input and how you would answer. I know you haven't been in law enforcement, but you have been in similar situations where you had to be extra aware of who's seeing you and who's not seeing you. So the letter goes as follows. Good morning. Here's the incident that I was faced with. It goes like this. There's a tented area in the city where I patrol, inhabited by homeless perpetrators, drug dealers, and drug dealer scouts living in those tents, posing as homeless. An officer was assaulted one night ago by one of the perpetrators that dwells in the tents described above. This perpetrator came out of one of the tents, fired several rounds, after which aiming his gun at a responding officer. After that, and a lot of yelling of verbal commands, the perpetrator surrendered his weapon. The very next night, the department had the not-so-bright, in fact, very ludicrous idea of putting me in a police car in high-visibility mode with the instruction to sit in front of those tents for 4 hours. Unbelievable. The command staff was probably thinking that extra presence in the area would deter future assaults on officers and make it safer for the public. They were probably also thinking that that more friendly approach would look better to the public than actually doing our job and legally, tactically, and safely clearing the area before we establish our visible presence. I was thinking that this was a suicide mission. I'm interested in what your thoughts are about this. That if a gun that assaulted an officer came out of one of those tents, that it was reasonable to believe that another gun was probably in another one of those tents and could be deployed at any time. I know that the job is dangerous, but I'm against unnecessarily being put in harm's way, if you know what I mean. And honestly, I felt like a sitting duck. Members of the agency mocked me and treated me like I was paranoid when I told them that the visibility plan was not designed to be used in hostile areas, but instead to be used to show a continuum of presence after the threat had been annulled to deter future violent perpetrators from inhabiting the area. In other words, the visibility plan was largely designed to keep the peace in areas once inhabited by criminal elements by maintaining a continuum and a continuous show of presence, and not meant to be deployed during the moments of hostility. I know that you are a published author in the field and write a lot about tactical leadership. My questions are as follows. 1. Am I paranoid for believing that it was a suicide mission? 2. In your experience, have you ever seen the visibility plan to be effective when deployed in a hostile environment? And 3. How would you suggest that I handle this type of mission in the future? As you know, we don't get to pick our deployments.
So can you read the first question out one more time?
Yes, sir. Am I paranoid for believing that I was on a suicide mission?
So to answer that question, absolutely not. I think any reasonable person, if you just grabbed someone off the street and said, hey, there was a shooting here last night in this city of tents, sit in front of it tomorrow night, would they feel safe? Would they feel like the threat is neutralized? My first question to leadership would be, okay, since it's safe, what were the actions taken? Did you clear all the tents? Are they all gone? Is there 0 weapons? Did you do a check? Did you have them go through and check everything? And from what it sounds like on the surface is no. They apprehended one individual thinking everything's fine. Again, that's kind of, in my mind, is ignorance and stupidity to claim that, yeah, there was a shooting last night, but we neutralized that one shooter, so it's probably impossible to happen again. It's probably their perspective, but that's easy to say from a desk. I don't think it's insane to think that was a suicide mission. Mm-hmm. I think there's more evidence to support that it would be a suicide mission to put you in the same area and have nothing done other than arrest one individual, which again is idiotic to even think that there's only one gun out there in a city full of tents, and there's no way to say unless you check and clear them all. So no, that's not at all paranoid. I think that's respectful, and that's actually smart thinking.
Definitely. Especially in this era where the amount of officers dying vis-a-vis the ambush is growing steadily every year. Mm-hmm. I think most recently, was it in New York, 2 officers were killed?
Yep, yeah, just last week, the 2 young officers, ambush style, execution style too, they were shot, so.
Yeah, definitely.
It happens, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Second question, in your experience, have you ever seen the visibility plan to be effective when deployed in a hostile environment?
So, again, if you know it's a hostile environment and you're going to use visibility, yes, I've seen it done. Yes, I've read or been briefed on different activities that's been the solution for. But again, we're not sending one squad to go patrol the area. We're showing out in force. We're going to have rolling Humvees and whatnot and entire platoons and doing flybys to let them know, hey, we're here and we're going to respond if you take action. But you can't respond. If you're going to visible, you can't respond with just one officer sitting out in plain clothes. If you wanted to show a presence peacefully in the area and let them know at the same time as a deterrent that, hey, we're here, there needs to be at least maybe 3, 4, 5 squad cars out there stationed around.
So maybe it's a play on words, but then could there be a difference between a show of force and a show of presence?
To me, it's the same thing, because presence is force if it's pertained to a certain entity like police or military.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's going to associate that immediately,
Yeah.
probably with force. If you see lots of police out there, it can go either way.
So like if you were a perpetrator in one of those tents, if you see one officer sitting in front of the tents like a sitting duck, would you view them as presence or force?
I'd see them as presence, and it wouldn't be a deterrent, because it's one squad car. They're saying, hey, I'm here, but they're also saying, you're basically dropping them a pin and saying, this is my spot. Don't do anything bad here. Go around the corner. Do it over there, because I'm here. So it's not to me. It's not even a deterrent. It's a deterrent from the vicinity of that one police car.
Yeah.
In the sense that visible deterrent, but at the same time, again with the ambush stuff, you're also dropping a map pin. If a guy in the tent, like you said, there's drug scouts as well, potentially in this officer's area. What's to stop him from calling in 4 of his buddies and saying, hey, there's one guy sitting here, I can see through the car, it's only one officer, 2 officers, get 5 guys out here, and whatever illegal guns, and let's just ambush him. What's to stop them from doing that?
Yeah, I really like what you said. So as you know, I'm an author in the field, and I have a training manual called Tactical Police Leadership, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Policing.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks about the show of force in 2 ways. One is the visibility plan we're talking about now, but you mentioned that how foolish it is for a department to think that if I put an officer here, it's going to stop crime, when in actuality, all it's going to do is say, if there's an officer here, I know there's not an officer there, so I'm just going to go over there. And I've kind of coined it as the invisibility plan. So maybe, basically the federal statistics, as I know them to be, is 1.8 to 3 officers per 1,000 residents. So for you to be visible to 1,000 people, you would have to patrol at a velocity greater than you could see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're rapidly going through your zone to be visible, you're not really doing much, because you're driving so fast you can't see. Would it be possible, like if we did an after action review, to maybe rewind the incident, and before you go ahead and put a cruiser there with its full-blown blue lights, being an eyesore, being a sitting duck, to basically have a less visible response so that they don't know they're being looked at initially? Like, is that something that you've seen done in the military a lot, like the use of undercover, or the use, I don't know what you'd call it in the military, but
Yeah, we call it plain clothes, absolutely. I mean, even a lot of our units in the specialty areas, when we deploy, we're not on the C-130s sometimes going over the C-5s. We're on civilian flights in plain clothes. We show up at the regular airports, and we don't travel in groups. You travel individually, so they can't count how many people are coming. They can't, if they notice 1 or 2 guys, they might say, hey, I think these guys are military, but they don't have a full count in the amount of people going into the area. And it's a complete just tactic plan to come in there, potentially in force, but plain clothes again, like you're saying, and not show them exactly all your cards up front, but just have kind of sometimes the idea, because a lot of times criminals are smart too, so they will catch on if there's some undercovers or whatnot. They might pick up on 1 or 2, but then in their head they're thinking, okay, I saw these 2. There's got to be more that I don't see.
definitely.
A lot of times.
So maybe for this last question, if you can put your crew chief hat on, so you have your team and you're in charge. Your mission is to patrol a given area, which is larger than a city block.
Uh-huh.
So you obviously have responsibilities for like a mile radius, and so you're not going to put all your resources to be visible in one location. So for this last question, where he's asking for suggestions on how should handle this type of mission in the future. As you know, we kind of talked about it off air. As a soldier or boots on the ground, you really can't pick your deployment. Sometimes when you develop trust with command staff, they allow you certain leeways on what you can do within the deployment. But, so in other words, you don't have the choice to say, I'm not going. But you can kind of tweak how you go, kind of thing.
Okay.
Would that be accurate?
I think so. Like you said, again, command tells you something, you got to do it. But again, if there's wiggle room in certain areas, you do have some leeway. My biggest issue with this situation is if they ask you to do it again, same thing, just one officer. I really don't see an effective way to do it unless you're in an armored cop car with bulletproof windows. I mean, if it was me and I had to do that, I would just, listen to command. I'd go out there, I'd park in my squad car. But if anything did happen, there's no shot I'd be getting out of the car. My first thing is I'd have my radio in my hand, and that'd be my weapon. I'd be calling for a forced backup, and that's really all I could do. From the leadership perspective, if they wanted to repeat that model, they need to realize, hey, this is a high crime area. There's incidents in the past. It's documented. It's proven. You can't just send one officer. You got to send 3, 4, 5 cars out there if you want to sit and have a visible presence.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one, though.
What the officer said told me as a little backdrop of what he did along the lines of following the orders of what you're supposed to be doing, but doing it in a safer way. What this officer ended up doing was he turned the patrol car on, put the cruise lights on, which are the blue lights but aren't flashing, stepped out of his vehicle, locked it, and he went to cover around the corner. So in his mindset, hey, you want me to be visible? I'm going to be visible, but I'm not going to be a target. So if they decide to shoot at the car, I'm not going to be in it. Does that sound like, I guess, the safest option he had, or what could he have done differently to be even safer or more mission effective?
So just full honestly, I'm definitely don't have officer experience in a civilian environment. And kind of everything I equate is going to be over towards Middle East and European theater. I again would have stayed in the car, but just because situations in the Middle East, you don't know who's going to shoot at you when, and I'd rather be in the car locked.
And there's probably in overseas, but unless you're in an urban environment, there's probably no city block to where you can park your tank, and then walk around the corner.
Yeah.
So you think you would have been better off to sit in his patrol car?
Yes and no. Again, I get the perspective actually of leaving the car with what's been going on, what I've seen in the news recently. I completely understand the idea to get out of the car, leave it locked, and be around the corner. Again, it depends what corner you're around. I'm sure the officer knows the area well, so that's an advantage to him too. So it could actually be a very good scenario. And you have more visibility and civilian presence too. There's a better chance that you're around do-gooders who, if something does happen, you're not alone because you'll be with other civilians. And civilians are a deterrent too to crime and violence. Nobody wants to just... Well, the majority of criminals don't want to just shoot into a crowd and be seen doing stuff. So I actually do think that is smart. Again, that plays on the presence too. You're increasing your presence. Even though it's with civilians, I can see that actually being a smart move as well, to get out of the locked car, leave it there so they see the car, but then you at the same time are kind of securing your safety off location if the car is attacked, and you also have more of a visual presence as a deterrent. That's actually very creative with working with what you have, which wasn't a lot in that situation for this officer, and command should have realized that. But that actually is, now that I kind of talk through it out loud, I'm kind of absorbing it more. That actually is a pretty good solution as well. Time out though, what do you think would have been the best response? To stay in the car locked and just call for backup if something does happen, or to be around the corner and leave it locked?
So I as a tactical practitioner, that's not my assignment where I work, but I view and hold officer safety in high regard, because if the good guy's down, then the whole public suffers. So you have to have measures to keep the good guys with guns safe, because also if you think about it from this perspective, law enforcement right now is at an all-time low in officer retention. And it's not only pay. There have been agencies that have finally been able to make pay kind of right, and people still leave. And I think it's because of stuff like this that they feel like they're not being respected. They're just viewed as pawns. That I'm going to make this leader happy. So I'm going to try and find the less or the least invasive way possible to do the job.
Yeah.
But in so doing, I think it's to me, I think it was neglect of management. I definitely would not have had an officer sit there in a car or even stand around the corner. I would have had PR reach out to the lot owners to get the tents evicted, because as there's something called probable cause that you need to have articulable suspicion before you can just go there and ripping tents apart.
Yep.
That wouldn't be viewed kindly by the public, and understandably so, because you do have the Constitution and rights, and some people literally can't afford a place to stay. But regretfully, you have the perpetrator element that knows this and knows that sympathy card, and so they erect tents in between these legitimate homeless people. If this was strictly a homeless camp and it was an isolated incident and we weren't the climate we were in, maybe a visibility plan would be okay, but even then, so again, the first step would be to coordinate with the owners of the properties that they have these tents on to say, hey, this is an eyesore, this is chasing away your customers, it's also making it unsafe for the officers, and if it's not safe for the officers and we're here to protect you, then it's not safe for you either. Once that is done, now law enforcement, after the timeline has elapsed, has the authority now to go in and legally and tactically run the ID of everyone on there, because at that point they're all trespassing. So it's not an unconstitutional stop, and the news is going to show up, and why are you harassing homeless, and but that segues into other issues, which we're not going to, we don't have time to talk about all of them today because there's so many, right? But there's another point that I make in the Tactical Police Leadership Manual of, if you don't explain to the public why you do what you do, you'll forever have to explain why you did what you did. And I think a big part of public trust is a lot of stuff that shouldn't be secret is kept under lock and key. Mm-hmm. And while I'm not saying we need to give the public our SWAT signals or let them know what house we're going to raid, letting them know the dangers that are legitimate concerns. What are the benefits to sending a solo officer in high visibility mode in a hostile environment where just the night before an officer was assaulted at gunpoint? I mean, is there any way we can salvage this to be a good idea?
From hearing your explanation and your other ideas, I don't think that that's a good idea, period. I think actually, if the higher-ups wanted to say, well, we want to show a peaceful show of presence for media, this or that, and they want to do stuff politely to the citizens, they should have gone the route you just brought up, which is the eviction route. That's actually genius. Talk to the property owners, have it done correctly, and that's still peaceful. Mm-hmm. You're not going in guns blazing saying, hey, get out of here. You're going through the correct channels, and it's not aggressive.
Definitely.
At that point, you do have the right to search, and while you're clearing up, you can kind of confiscate, investigate, and figure out what was there.
And then in the aftermath, once you weed out who shouldn't be there, obviously they all shouldn't be there because they're all trespassing, but what I mean by that is once you can identify who the perpetrators are and who the legitimate homeless people are, then you can start to give resources to them. You can help them get off the street. But at this point, it's an unknown who is a law-abiding citizen, who isn't. I guess going into the conclusion, since nobody's asking, I'm asking. You're very qualified. You've served your country. You weren't in law enforcement, but you were in enforcement of sorts. Enforcing, I guess, the country's interests. It seems very hard, at least for boots on the ground, to change the model in which we pick our leaders, or in which we train our leaders, or what we expect of our leaders. What is the alternative to make things safer on the street and more effective for the regular officer?
If you feel like you have something productive, proactive, and insightful to offer the field that you're in, but nobody's asking, contact me at tacticalpoliceleadership9@gmail.com.